Thank you so much for joining us on KEXP, where the music matters. I'm Cheryl Waters, and I am so excited to be live here in the KEXP studios with Gordi. How are ya?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good. Last time we talked, it was remotely, and it's so wonderful to have you and your band here live in the KEXP studios.
Yeah, it's very nice to be here in real life.
And with a new album like Plasticine, you're going to share some of those songs with us today. Why don't you play some songs, and then we'll catch up.
That sounds good.
It's Gordi live on KEXP.
1, 2, 3, 4. I'm in your backstage. I'm on your sideline. I'm looking your way. So won't you put me in your sight?
You're listening to Gordi live on KEXP, a song from the new album Like Plasticine. And so excited to have Gordi here in the KEXP studios in Seattle. And thank you so much to all of our viewers and listeners for supporting KEXP. We are listener powered, and all of these sessions made possible with your support. You can make a gift anytime at kexp.org and help support great music and live sessions like this one and so many others with Gordi. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'll let you know every time we launch a new video.
You know, it's hard to see with your eyes closed. You're getting lost in your mind out there. The world is crippling all you care for. lights out, like the city is closed down, and all my galaxies in your grasp. Don't abandon them, I won't last long. You are a force that renders me defenseless, and I know the pressure you feel seems relentless, but everything is fleeting except you and I. Certain is the weight of what burdens you. Remember when we had lunch at Dune? It felt like something that we'd never get through. And we say, when things are better we forget the nights and phone calls that we regret. So count the seconds and the minutes and the hours and the days. There won't be a second time. You are a force that renders me defenseless, and I know the pressure you feel seems relentless, but everything is fleeting except you and I. At some point, it all stops. It all stops. It all stops. At some point, it all stops. It all stops. It all stops. And at some point, it all stops. It all stops. It all stops. And at some point, it all stops. It all stops. You are a force that renders me defenseless, and I know the pressure you feel seems relentless, but everything is fleeting except you and I.
You're listening to Gordi live on KEXP, that beautiful song Lunch at Dune featuring S. Carey.
She said that she watched him die on FaceTime. It all took about 3 days. No, they wouldn't let her keep the bed sheets, folded hospital corner, like a leech to feed on tenderness, like a PVC divide, like a concrete backyard caving in, and from the lowest rung you climb. Spent 44 minutes on the telephone, weeping in gratitude that they were first to let you go before you knew you had to lose. Like a leech to feed on tenderness, like a PVC divide, like a concrete backdrop cave.
So beautiful. You're listening to Gordi live on KEXP, a new album like Plasticine. It's such a pleasure to hear these songs in the KEXP studio with this amazing band.
Last night I woke up on the cutting room floor, and I was thinking about the way we were before. There was a time when you were the last one out my door, but not anymore. I was a stranger to the way we grew apart. I hate these conversations, how they get so hard. I made available a portion of my heart, but not anymore. Not We used to spend our days so blissfully bored, turning our savings into things we could not afford, running our mouths, but now we can't talk anymore. Not You're like a rope burning my hands as I hang on, and I will only persevere for so long. But I am a sucker for the show that must go on. But not anymore. Not
Absolutely gorgeous. It's Gordi live on KEXP with a new album called Like Plasticine. Thank you so much for bringing this wonderful group to the KEXP studios today.
Yeah, thanks for having us. We got a stellar cast over here, and they've all done a beautiful job.
Last time we featured live music with you, it was with Alex Leahy in February 2021, exactly 1 year into the COVID lockdown. And we were so happy to get some live music from you during a time where music was feeding our soul in an extra special way. But from what I read, you weren't really able to, you didn't or couldn't write music much during the pandemic. And you dipped your toe back into writing with the beautiful, breathtaking EP, Lunch at Dune. I was so happy to hear that song today. You worked on that EP with the amazing Irish artist Soak. And then I understand that for Like Plasticine, you went into a couple of sort of retreat type situations. Can you talk about beginning writing again and how this record started to come together?
Yeah, so I mean, as my music career was beginning, I was finishing medical school, and I'd kind of finished my junior training, and that took me to the start of 2020, and I had a year of touring lined up, and of course, everyone knows what happened instead. And so I spent kind of the better part of those 2 years working back in hospitals, and I found it really difficult to write anything for a long time. I think I felt quite existential about songwriting in the face of a virus that seemed to be ending the world. And I also, I always write about my own experiences, and my own experiences felt like the grief of other people that I was seeing in the hospital every day. And I struggled to kind of put that into songwriting. But eventually into 2021, I flew to Sydney, and I kind of had set a week aside, and I went into this really beautiful kind of like wood-panelled space that's like a performance space in Sydney called Phoenix Central Park. And I had a grand piano there and kind of fenced myself in with guitars and amplifiers. And I thought, I'm not leaving until I have written something. And surely enough, songs just kind of came pouring out. The first one that I kind of wrote that ended up on like Plasticine was Cutting Room Floor, which we played last. And then 6 months later, I did the same thing again, set a week aside, went to a different space, this time an old church, and wrote the second half of the record. And one of the songs I played today was a song called PVC Divide. And that was oh, thank you. That really kind of was trying to capture my experience in the hospital during those 2 years, because, people in hospitals are always sick. You're always seeing people on their worst day. But the difference in the pandemic was because of lockdown, people's families couldn't be with them. So PVC Divide kind of details the story of me telling this man, some awful news, and that we had to sort of have his daughter there on FaceTime, and kind of being sat with that grief when usually you're the one leaving the room, leaving the patient with their friends and family. It was pretty indescribably challenging.
That must have been such an emotionally difficult thing, but just, so life-affirming in a way, although such an incredible time. It's interesting that for many of us, we were in a solitary situation during COVID, and because you were filling such an essential role, thank you so much. You were not spending COVID in a solitary environment, so you had to go away and do that to begin the songwriting process. And you've said in the past that you tried to keep your musical life and your professional life separate. And as you've said, during the pandemic, the similarities between your worlds became more and more apparent, and you began to merge the two. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I did always try to keep them separate, though. I feel like for the first sort of 3 or 4 years of my career, I was constantly trying to escape people trying to photograph me with a guitar and a lab coat, which I'm glad that never really saw the light of day. But later, in the last few years, it was kind of COVID's fault. I think like medicine and working in hospitals was my everyday. As you said, people were isolated in their own homes. I was sort of having this experience where I'd just get in my car, drive to the hospital, drive home, go straight into the shower, hoping that I hadn't kind of brought COVID home with me. But I think that, lots of people have asked me over the years what I think the similarities are. So I've spent a lot of time thinking about it. And I think in both songwriting and strangely in medicine, you're kind of trying to tell a story. In the case of in the hospital, it's someone's telling me their story. I'm then packaging it up and delivering it back to them in a way that they understand, and it requires a great deal of compassion and empathy and patience, and those are the things that also make a songwriter, understanding your own story, the story of someone you're writing about, and packaging it up in a way that a listener is going to understand.
Well, you've always been very open and honest in the stories you tell in your records, and you made a note to yourself during the writing process, inject emotion into everything. What stories are you telling on Like Plasticine?
Yeah, so I guess it probably helps to start with where the title of the record comes from. So as I was finishing medical school, it's a little morbid, but the last exam you learn how to do is how to certify death. And so, you know, it's a real privilege to be with somebody just after they've passed away, and you conduct an examination. So you listen for the absence of life, absence of breath sounds, absence of heart sounds. And I was really struck by the skin of people after they've passed away and how it sort of changes and hardens. And it made me think of plasticine. Like I remember playing with when I was a kid, I remember playing with Play-Doh at the kitchen table, and I would kind of mash it up into shapes and stretch it, and then I'd make it into something, and I'd go to sleep and wake up the next morning and it would kind of have this hardened, waxy exterior. And I was in this hospital room thinking about that and thinking about, you know, if we are like plasticine in death, then how are we like plasticine in life, you know? And that's kind of what the record's about. What are all the moments of transformation that, you know, make you change shapes, make you change, you know, the way that you are, but your substance kind of remains the same. Plasticine is not breakable, you know? And I think for me, those moments of transformation are grief and love and, you know, coming to terms with my own queerness and those kinds of rites of passage in life that, you know, that change you whether you want them to or not.
Well, it is such a beautiful album and such a range of sounds. I know that you like playing with layers, and you can make some really big, beautiful sounds like Peripheral Lover, which is just a standout on the album, but also sparse and gritty and soulful. Another standout is Alien Cowboy, which is on the different end of the spectrum. And then there's the opening track, which is very sparse and gritty and soulful. Can you talk a little bit about the sonic palette you were going for on this record?
Yeah, I think like, to come back to your earlier point, I had written on the front of my notebook, inject emotion into everything. And that was kind of, you know, in terms of the way the music was going to sound, that was more important to me than, picking a genre or picking a particular style. I think that I found it interesting in the past to kind of put the sort of lyrical meaning and the musical sounds at loggerheads with each other. You know, if something is tender to make it sound harsh. But I think on this record, I really tried to marry the way that it sounded with the song meaning, you know. And the way that the record began was those 2 separate weeks in Sydney. And because I was by myself, I would go in each morning and make some sort of loop, like what I would call sort of the bones of a song. So it might be drums, keys, bass or something. And that loop for all those songs kind of would stay in there until the end. So it meant that when I got into the studio, I wanted everything to be more lively and more played and, you know, have that kind of contrast between the static loops at the bottom and then something that felt more alive on top.
Well, it's wonderful to catch these songs live today because the album comes out in August, like Plasticine. And again, such a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much for sharing this music with us today.
Thanks, Cheryl.
We're live here in the KEXP studios with Gordi. Thank you all so much for being a part of what we do here at KEXP. Again, you can make a donation anytime at kexp.org and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we'll let you know when all the videos launch from these wonderful sessions. Again, thank you so much. It's Gordi live on KEXP.
Discover new music at listener-powered KEXP.org.